In this lesson, we'll learn how we can start to extract existing pieces of geometry to build new details. Okay, so we have our little piece of geometry here, our main aircraft here. Now, what I'd like to do is actually start to build some detail and some raised details right around this little area that we have punched out. Now, again, this is where some of the benefits of a surface mesh really comes into play, because actually starting to create new geometry that perfectly conforms to this shape would start to be really pretty difficult to do if we were using polygons. But with NURBS, we'll find that this is very, very easier with a surface. This is very, very easy. So the first thing we want to do is actually basically start to extract this curve, or this curvature that we see here. So within this, you'll notice that we do have the basic points. Since this is a NURBS, or a surface piece of geometry, we have things like boundaries, which we can come in and start to grab basically the ends. And we can also start to grab basically these sample points, which are really used a little bit more for texturing and things like that. Now, if we pull out this little menu here, we actually have a lot of other different component types that we can gain access to. What I'm looking for specifically is this trim curve. So if I choose that trim curve, and now come in here and grab something like this curvature here, you can see that becomes highlighted in red. Now with this, I could come in and basically extract this as a new curve that I could use for really anything that I want. So with this trim curve selected, let's go to Create Curve, because I want to build a new curve on top of this. So we'll go to Create Curve, and let's extract from surfaces. There we are. So you can see in white, here's my new curve that has been built for me. And everything should be good. So we'll go ahead and just close this out. Now, one thing that you will notice is if now I press the T key on my keyboard, you'll notice that the points on this curve are really not very clean. There's lots of just sort of scattered points in here. And again, I'm sort of a stickler for having clean geometry, so I like something that is a little bit cleaner than this. So what I can do is essentially now build a new curve directly on top of this old one. So this, you could think of as sort of my original kind of dirty curve. So now I want to build something that is much cleaner directly on top of this. So again, since I'm going to be building a new curve, we'll go to Create Curve, and this time we'll go to Fit on Curve. Okay, and if I just move this property page up and over to the side, you can see that now here's my new white curve. If I press the T key on my keyboard, you'll see that the overall geometry, the number of points in here, is much, much cleaner. I only have, in this case, about 10 points. Now what's nice is I can still come in here and adjust the number of points on here until I find something that is going to work for me. But overall, you'll find that this new point layout is much, much cleaner than what we had before. And again, when it comes to having clean geometry, I just find that this is a much, much better way to work. Now we'll come in here and make sure that this curve is closed. All right, and when it comes to actually working with maybe something that was built directly on top of another curve, what we could do is either hide that original curve that was used to build it, or whenever we're finished, we could choose Delete. And what that will do is actually delete that original curve that was used to build this new one. So essentially, again, it just deleted that old dirty curve that was there. Okay, so now I have this nice clean curvature, or this nice clean curve here, exactly what I want. And now we can essentially use this as a basis for building more geometry. So here's a look at where we can actually come in here and start to create some really, really neat effects. So let's start by making a primitive circle. And again, just for the sake of ease, I'll go ahead and just move this up and out of the way. Now what I'd like to do is take the shape of this circle and now basically trace it along this new curve that we just built, and essentially make myself a nice little lip around this little pilot hole. So with this selected, let's go to, again, Create Surface Mesh, because I want to build a new piece of geometry along here. So we'll go to Create, and I'm going to make a new piece of geometry by extruding this along a curve. Now, Softimage will ask us the curve that we want to use. Let's choose this new clean curve that we just built. All right, and you can see that what we get is just an absolute mess here. That's completely normal because what has happened, it's now taken this big, huge circle and tried to trace it around that new little curve. So again, because of the actual history that we have connecting these, we could just take the radius of that circle. You can see as we start to dial this down that it affects the size of the circle, which in turn affects the size of the actual extrusion. So in my case, maybe something like 0.2, 0.25 should work just fine. And again, we can still come in here and start to adjust things like the actual subdivisions on this curve up here. And again, as we start to dial those down, you can see the amount of geometry starts to become a little bit less. So in my case, if I were to set that to something like 8 or 10, that should work pretty well for me. And again, I could always come in here and adjust the actual number of divisions up here as well. Now up here, we're actually affecting the subdivisions of the piece of geometry that doesn't affect the actual appearance of this curve. Down here, again, this is where we're adjusting the appearance of the curve, which in turn affects the geometry itself. Sort of a history relationship that we have here. So once we have this set up, you can see, again, if I were to just quickly tap my spacebar and pull out here, that we have this nice new little lip here that conforms perfectly to the curvature of our airplane body. Like I said, this would have been very, very difficult to try to build if we were actually using something like polygons as opposed to this surface mesh. All right, now here's where this starts to get really neat. The fact that we can still take this original circle, if I were to pull that down so we could actually get a better look at this, if we were to modify the shape of this circle, that will in turn modify the actual shape that's being drawn around this original curve. So if I were to press the T key on my keyboard, come in here and tag a point on this circle, and come in here and start to make some changes to that shape, you can see how it's very dramatically affecting the shape of this shape that's being drawn around here. So I could come in and use that to essentially just shape this down in any way that I want. So maybe if I wanted to flatten that out a little bit more, come in here and just pull that down. There we are. Now that makes just a little bit more of the kind of a sharp lip in there. And maybe just flatten that out again. Just come in here and kind of play with these different shapes until you find something that is going to work for you. So lots and lots of control that we have here. And again, really, really neat the fact that we can come in here and still make these sorts of modifications after the fact and use that as a way of finding the shape that we need instead of having to actually build this and make sure that everything is perfect beforehand, which would be a real difficult thing to do otherwise. Very nice. So now you can see we have this nice little lip around the pilot hole, which again perfectly conforms to the overall shape of this airplane body. Okay, so in our next lesson we're going to continue with building out some of these additional pieces of this airplane body.